Tere tulemast, welcome. We're so happy to see you here. This idea came from cooperation with the city center government while we were talking about what the library can do to help new arrivals or people from other countries living or working or studying in Tallinn to integrate better into Estonian society, or learn about the little things Estonia does differently, or how to use our many e-services. And libraries, we pride ourselves on doing that. For instance, we have language cafes where you can practice Estonian. It's less official, less serious maybe than language classes with tests. We also have consultations, like I said, about our e-services. Of course, we also have e-libraries, and one of them, Overdrive, has mostly books, e-books, audiobooks, and e-magazines in English and other foreign languages. So if you haven't gone to our website yet, it's keskraamatukogu.ee/en. So if we will have any links, we will just add them in the chat. And if someone doesn't feel comfortable talking, they can also add their questions in chat. We have more people coming, so as you join, you can just join in the conversation, answer any questions we have. We have a few things prepared, and the main aim is to talk about literature. So yeah, that little introduction aside, does anyone from the library side want to add anything, or did I cover the basics?
Maybe I would share my screen of our webpage. One moment. Here, I hope you can all see our library webpage. It's keskraamatukogu.ee/en, so our English webpage. And in here, you can see these little blue, blue boxes here. Here, Tina talked about our e-libraries. So we have Ellu, Overdrive, and Naxo. So you can easily access those from here. And you can register as a reader firsthand, of course, also online if you'd like, or come to the library as well. So on our webpage, you can also see maybe events that we hold. Culture Swap is here, and all the information about the library. So feel free to check it out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandra, for that. Shall we get started? First thing, of course, very biased as I am about libraries. How much do you know about libraries in your own country? Do you know what they do, or you can just tell us about your experience with libraries?
Well, I can kick it off, so the others can prepare their answer. Since I'm a life-old Tallinneer, so to say, or local, then as you can see, I have the privilege to enjoy the Estonian Student Society's private library, where we have literature going to maybe hundreds of books. So a lot of books going around to read, and yeah. Otherwise, I would say during my uni years, I had more time to spend time at the libraries. At the Central Library, I am hoping to visit that place in the near future as well, once the restrictions get vanished away. So yeah, thanks.
Before or after they rebuild it from scratch? From what I remember from the news, they're going to rebuild the whole building, or?
not even sure if they're going to rebuild the whole thing. I'm pretty sure some of it is protected by the different institutions, like the historical. I think it's listed as a historical monument. So I don't know. I think they're keeping like the outside of it and just redoing the inside. That seems to be quite popular for now. But I do not work for the National Library, and if they do tear it down, don't hold me to my word. But Hanna, you mentioned before, I think that you worked in a library. You were a librarian in Belarus, no?
I'm not a librarian, the IT staff, as a matter of fact. I was, as a kid, I was basically living in a library because we had a library, the central library of my home city, Gomel, next to my house. And it was full of books, so what else to wish for? So you just go there and you spend all the possible time there. It was pre-internet times. I'm ancient, so it was the only source of everything, the only source of knowledge about the world, and so on and so forth. And then one day we decided, someone decided to have a digital transformation performed there. So we were going from the old good paper catalogs to the new good computer catalogs. And it was quite a revolution, of course, for the library staff, because they were not used to this idea like at all. And I was one of those young people hired to explain how to move the mouse properly to all the nice people. And giving this kind of consultations, I was allowed to have some extra access to the library resources in response. And it was absolutely a fair trade, because it was a big and rich library with a lot of old books, the historical books, the leftovers from 18th century or 17th century in the special conditions, stored very carefully. And knowing about such things existing is one thing, but when you are allowed not to touch, but to have a closer look at something like this, it's a completely different experience. So it was amazing in every single way, and I was very proud of this kind of activities and being involved in this. While this digital transformation was going on and on, the library was turned more from a library to a community center. A lot of events, a lot of courses, a lot of digital related things, all kinds of projects, all kinds of exhibitions and so on. So it was quite fun.
I think that definitely continues until this day, that libraries tend to be community centers because they have so many things that they do. They have classes, they have trainings, and what an exciting time to be part of a library when they're just going digital. I mean, also this year, I forgot to mention, the Ministry of Culture in Estonia declared 2022 as the year of libraries. So I forgot to mention that before. I think that's a lovely thing, and we're of course, as librarians, we're happy to be acknowledged. So the year is like divided into different parts. There's like and one part is libraries as community centers. It's also libraries as places to familiarize yourself with literature, but also in the summer, there's a segment called Libraries on Wheels. So we have a library bus, so feel free to check that out as well. So does anyone else want to comment about their experience with a library in a city where they live now, or where they have lived before or studied before? Or it's just maybe you're not even a patron of libraries and you find your books and access to internet elsewhere. That's fine as well.
So actually, I would like to share. I come from Colombia. So in Colombia, libraries have a slightly different approach to things. So if you have a big city, then you have the possibility of having something like a community center. But in smaller cities, it's a lot more difficult. So in tinier, like in the tiniest towns of my country, they would usually have mobile libraries. So it's like a small bus that tours around and basically has community events for kids mostly, and to give them the chance to, to have access to books. And that's in Colombia. I lived in Singapore for some time and in San Francisco for some time. And in San Francisco, I had the chance of volunteering for the library over there. It was really, really fun. And in Singapore, it was just one of my favorite places. It's an amazing, amazing library, the National Library of Singapore. very futuristic, and that is definitely a community kind of place. They host a lot of amazing events. It was a really, really good experience to be able to have access to that. And yeah, I would say that it's been a passion. My mom used to be a librarian for that kind of project that would bring books to smaller cities and smaller towns in Colombia. So I think that kind of like love for that kind of project kind of passed down to me. And for some time I also lived in Malaysia, and in Malaysia I was working with an NGO. And one of my projects was to set up libraries for underprivileged kids. So a lot of orphanages, for example, we would go to the orphanage and bring books that were donated by just people everywhere, and just set up a library, and to see the impact that, you know, small space has for kids, just to see them, you know, going to the books and taking the books and getting really excited about reading. It's a very, very beautiful experience. So that would be my share.
I don't know, that sounds absolutely amazing. So many countries, so many different approaches to libraries, also taking part in like building libraries for underprivileged people. It's absolutely amazing, and I'm in awe. Do you what about, how to ask this, like what about the like the extra things, services that libraries offer? Do you also find that you go to libraries for, I don't know, for sports equipment or tools or musical instruments? I know some libraries in the UK have like pots and pans like that you can borrow. Does anyone have any experience with that?
We were trying to speak Estonian in the library, actually, already here in Tallinn. So it was this foreign books. I don't remember the official name. Some foreign books part of the library on Leiavad, next to the Stockholm. And there was a super enthusiastic lady. So the lady's name, it seems to be Svetlana, but it was ages ago. I don't remember already, to be honest. She was super enthusiastic. She was like a walking enthusiasm. And she was trying to teach us Estonian. Or rather, she was trying to organize it in a way when we could teach each other Estonian and English in response. So she brought a number of Estonian people who were eager to speak some English once in a while. And then there were us trying to speak some Estonian, which sounded pretty terrible, to be honest, usually, but we were quite insistive towards Estonian. So we were like going to speak it no matter what. And unfortunately, poor Svetlana, I mean, she had to build bridges between us, because Estonian people are not used to Estonian speaking foreigners, and all the precious Estonian we speak. Often we're not able to understand what the heck we're trying to say, actually. And she probably was playing some kind of games, discussions, and so on, like a very rich agenda for every single time we were going to meet. But then again, we appeared to be those people who have not enough Estonian vocabulary for it. And we were still trying to do something. So it was hilarious, I assume, for her, because, yeah, listening to people saying all of this useless, strange, mixed things in what they believe is Estonian is a very special thing. But at the same time, actually, it was quite a warm community. Despite us being barely able to understand each other, somehow it felt very good. So we were trying to explain our national traditions of various kinds, like national dishes of God knows what origin, trying to figure out some common things to do. Speaking about libraries, besides other things, so it was a lot of fun, actually. And I still have a couple of friends, Estonian friends from this community, and I enjoyed it a lot.
That's really nice to hear. I'm the head of the department there now, and we are planning to have an Estonian language cafe again from this year, because now we maybe we can host some things at the site also. soon, but we had all these restrictions, so it was difficult to do things there. And also, as you can see, this Zoom format is also acceptable. Maybe not as good as to really meet people and talk together, but it's an acceptable choice and a way to do that. So thank you for sharing that.
Exactly, and I think you're underestimating yourself, because I know the whole program of language cafes in our library. I think it did start in the Department of Literature in foreign languages, and we have basically two big departments. We have a library bus, and we have 17 branch libraries. And just before COVID hit, I think there was language cafes at least every other library. So it became a whole, like a library-wide language cafe. So in that sense, I don't think you did that badly at all. I don't think you traumatized anyone. Everyone knows that's the point of language learning. I mean, we're all speaking our second language, or how many which language. All right, so I think maybe does anyone want to say anything more about libraries, or shall we go on to literature and reading in general?
I can say something about my experience with the libraries and libraries in my hometown, and of course in Bucharest, because from Romania, I come from a smaller town, and my father was also a librarian for 25 years as a side job, not his main job, but I don't think it was most of a job for him, because it was mostly a passion of him, because he's also a writer, and he liked to spend time in between books. And yeah, sadly, when I was younger, I wasn't that passionate about reading. I read books mostly for school, or if I find something really interesting, I was reading. So I was not going that much to libraries. Also, because at home we had around 2,500 volumes of, so there was basically not that much need. And because my father was a librarian, I could have asked him if I wanted a book or something like that. But yeah, in my hometown, the library is not that big. From what I saw, I was really curious how are they managing everything, and I went today online on their website, and I can see that right now they have also an English section in the library. But it's really, I can say, cute library, because it's in an old villa which was donated by the one who stayed there. I can't remember the name exactly, to be a library, and it's an old villa from the beginning of the 20th century, and it's really, really nice. The library in Bucharest, sadly, the original one was bombed during the revolution of 1989, but it was rebuilt in the same way. So and it's more how should I put it, IT friendly, and more with more technology than the library in my hometown. I'm pretty sure in my hometown they use computers right now, not the cards anymore. So, but yeah. So yeah, basically, this is my experience with the with the libraries. Yeah. I lived between books all my childhood.
Thank you. Right, so about reading literature.
So let's talk about what you all love to read, and what are your experiences with literature, and let's talk some about the literature in your countries, and the authors that you would recommend us. Does anyone want to start?
I can go. Oh, okay. No, please do. Yeah, okay. So I would like to share that actually I realized very recently that my preference for literature has to do with only one thing, and it is good stories. For the longest time, I thought I was not very into like dystopian, like that kind of like genre, but I've given that a shot, and I've realized that I don't really care what the, what the type of literature it is, as long as it is a good story. And yeah, that was a very big revelation. It sounds really lame, but it was actually a really, really big revelation for me, because it opened an entirely new world of possibilities, right? I started reading types of literature that I had not read before, and I encountered things that I was very surprised about. So that was really good. For some time, I was also very fixated in exploring nonfiction, just practical stuff. And through my teenage years, I think novels really made it for me. I was a very, very passionate novel reader, and just classic literature was a very, very big thing for me. And I think throughout my life, it's been really revealing to kind of like to track that evolution of that literary journey, right? And understanding what I like at which point of my life, and why do I go for these kind of titles and so on. And I think just in general, reading has been a very big part of my experience in this lifetime. So yeah, I'm very grateful for all the books I've read and for the ones that are yet to come. Yeah.
I want to say that your revelation is not new. I've discovered something similar about myself as well. So yeah, the good story is most important. So does anyone else want to share?
I can say something. When talking about what I'm reading, and when I'm reading international authors, I'm usually attracted to crime or true crime, or writings about the Holocaust or the World War II, and also fantasy. Tolkien is one of my favorites, and I think I read everything from him. When I'm reading books wrote by Romanian authors, it's kind of the total opposite from the international ones. Unfortunately, I haven't read anything from the contemporary authors. I was not really attracted to it. I only read books from authors from the period between the First World War and the Second World War. I don't know how that period is called. I know in Romanian, but I can't remember in English. And in Romanian, I like to read mostly plays, and it's because I read from that time period. It's because it gets me in that mood of how the life was in that time, and how people were, and I really love that time period of from the beginning of the 20th century and all that. So that's why in Romanian I read only. I like to imagine the cities, because Romania being in a communist kind of bloc, not in the Soviet Union, many of the cities were changed. So and by reading how life was, and you're imagining how the cities were and how life was, and the idyllic part, not the bad part, because we had bad parts too. Yes. I don't know, should I give like recommendation of what Romanian authors or? All right.
Sure, that would be nice.
Well, I have unfortunately I haven't read anything about written by Herta Müller, which she's Romanian. She was born in Romania, but she's from Germanic parents, and of course she won the Nobel Prize for Literature. I haven't read anything, and I think I will, because I was interested in what she wrote, and it's exactly what I'm interested in. But from what I read from the plays, my favorite play is it's The Star with No Name by Mihail Sebastian. Unfortunately, I don't think you can find it here. I found the English version on Amazon. So if you order, it's on Amazon. It's a really nice play, and I think it's my favorite because it happens in a city between my hometown and the one in the towns in the mountains. So it's an idyllic, peaceful city where everything goes like no one cares about anything until one thing happens, and so yeah, I won't tell anything else. And there's another really good book about how the communist regime was at the beginnings, and how the intellectuals and the teachers, the university teachers, and were sent to jails, and it's called The Most Beloved of Earthlings. I think you can find it in English. It was translated in multiple languages. It's one of the best books. It's by Marin Preda, and it was written in some 1980s or something like that. So yeah.
I wanted to say that we also have on our webpage a place where you can recommend the library which books to order.
Yeah.
And so please do that.
I also found in Mauruse, I found one book by a Romanian author. It's one of the books that I read and I like. It's by Liviu Răbreanu, it's Ion, and I think it's in Estonian, so you can find it there. And yeah, another good book by Liviu Răbreanu is the Wood of Hangs. I think this is a translation. I don't know a really good translation for it. And it's a psychological novel, war psychological novel from the First World War. So yeah, it's really good.
Thank you. For Estonian people who read in Estonian, there is a lot of Romanian literature translated into Estonian. I think because of like a similar culture background in the communism socialism sense.
Into Russian.
Yeah, exactly, and also into Russian. Yeah, Estonian and Russian weirdly, but English not so many. I think we only found a couple, and I'm not even sure they're available in our libraries. I added one that I found easily first one suggestion. So if anyone else wants to, or if you want to continue, Katalin, with more recommendations, Herta Müller, I guess you will remember that name. So if anyone else wants to talk about books or suggest some books to read, I can search and add them to the chat as well if you want to read them after.
Well, actually, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite books in my childhood was the Romanian author, Ion Creangă, something like this. And it was an amazing book about the childhood memories. Him growing up in a tiny little place somewhere in the mountains. And yeah, it was a great thing to read. I don't know though if it's available in Estonian, because it was available in both of my native languages. I'm bilingual and I read in Russian and Polish.
Yeah, it's childhood memories. I think all children in Romania are reading this because it's really beautiful. It's they lived a hard life, but it's told from the perspective of a child who doesn't have any worries, and yeah. It continues until he becomes a teacher, and it's his childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very similar actually to Oscar Lutz, to the Estonian classical Estonian things, because I mean all this type of the literature, probably it was we had representative from probably every country of the ex-Soviet bloc in back in USSR, carefully translated at least to Russian. So if you read in Russian, you and you're a kid and you have a library nearby, you know these kind of stories from like literally every country around. And that makes it very special, because if you live somewhere like in Belarus, for example, and you read about Romania you have never been to, and you probably will not, and you see the similarities and at the same time the difference, and how the people lived in at more or less the same time in different countries, it's a very interesting book experience in my opinion. And I kept having this kind of book experience all the childhood because of this bilinguality thing. When you read about the same things from two points of views, and those points of views are very often not just different, but they are the opposite ones. Because Polish people and Russian people, like say Russian-speaking people, never mind, they often perceive each other as quite the opposite ones, the opposite sides of historical processes, of social things, like and so on. And it gives you a very special experience and very special attitude towards values and towards historical events and facts, or what people believe are facts and so on. When you see that actually they can be turned upside down in no time, very easily. Like the very same historical event can be interpreted in such a different manner, in absolutely opposite manner. So there's the fact of being bilingual and possessing those languages of two opposite sides was a very important and maybe the core thing which made me who I am. Being connected to two worlds and two literatures at the same time.
Definitely. Any certain recommendations maybe you want to give?
I don't think, I mean, I like the Belarusian literature is very rich, actually, the old Belarusian literature. We have this amazing book, Шляхтец Завальня. I will try to find if it has ever been translated to, I know it's been translated to English, but not to Estonian probably. It's a book of fairy tales, basically, of the old school fairy tales, when there are devils and demons and all the wonderful spirits of nature and stuff and so on. And at the same time, there are those people who do funny things and stupid things sometimes in a funny way. And every Belarusian kid probably knows these fairy tales and loves this book. So it's a great thing. I will try to check out if it's translated anywhere.
And of course, I think one Belarusian author, Svetlana Alexeyeva, she won the Nobel Prize also.
She did, but it's a very special type of literature. I mean, it's something very loaded with opinions, very loaded with emotions, and sometimes, unfortunately, those emotions are being squeezed from the reader in a very direct way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's quite easy if you know how to build a text, like the very basic things about creating a text. It's very easy to squeeze something out of your reader. Like you describe a tiny little puppy in the middle of the winter and living all alone and struggling and so on. And of course, you make people cry this way. But it's a little bit too direct way. And it makes you cry, and at the same time, you feel fooled. So it's this kind of literature sometimes. But I guess it's worth, even though, I mean, it was given a Nobel Prize, it should mean something.
Right, anyone else? Colombia has a really famous author. I think everyone knows. Do you want to talk about that? I think the video froze maybe. Right. Anyone else? We were discussing literature. We were giving recommendations on the famous authors or favorite authors of the country where you're from.
Sure, I'll have a go if you don't mind. Yeah, so if I had to describe myself as a reader, then yeah, I don't know anyone who reads quite as slow as I do, well, apart from my girlfriend, which is, come to think of it, maybe why we're still together. But yeah, we're extremely slow readers. Plus, the other quality of what we have is we usually read 5 to 6 to 7 different books at once. So you start one, reach to the middle pretty much, and then grab another one. So we have at least 5 different books on each side of our bed. But yeah, I would say my passion for the literature was reignited during my history studies in Tallinn University, where I had to take this course, the international literature course, where we got to read different books or literary pieces from all around the world, from different eras, and then make book reports on them. So yeah, that definitely helped me back on track with the reading part. What I would say, well, about the last book I actually managed to finish quite lately was actually one of my university lecturers called Rein Müllerson, the international law professor here in Estonia, as well as in the King's University, London King University in London, something like that. So he had this book, or still has, called Living in Interesting Times, Curse or Chance. This book should interest people who are interested in international law and as well in geopolitics and history of it. As he was the advisor to President Gorbachev during its reign, he got to see the international law playing out in front of him and influence that as well. So gives this great glimpse for a historian, at least, about the time and the order then. Yeah, but describing those 2 books I took actually with me today. I am trying to finish this Yuval Noah Harari, who's also a historian, I believe. His book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. I think he has a trilogy, yeah, Sapiens and Homo Deus, previous books, which gives a rather intriguing insights of the future to come, about the development of different technologies and how these disruptive technologies will start influencing, or predictably are going to influence our lives real soon. Yeah, it's I wouldn't categorize it as a horror novel or a literature piece, but it's pretty grim as well as optimistic. Depends on which page you have landed on, apparently. And of course, I have yet to make something out of this book called Trickster Makes This World by Lewis Hyde. Well, Santa Claus brought this to me, so I am yet to discover what's inside. Maybe some of you already know what I'm headed towards to. I would be more than happy to hear you out. But the book I wanted to talk to you about the most was well, there's an interesting story how it ended up in my hands. It's not actually my book per se. So a few years back when I was traveling to Malaysia, I believe, yeah. A girl who I'd been with at the time gave me as this departure gift this book by, I believe everyone here knows, by Paulo Coelho. I'm not pronouncing it right, definitely not, but you know, alchemists anyway. So yeah, I took the book with me. Of course, it was in English. Of course, I forgot it on the first plane when I had to switch planes. So I got rid of the book, the original one that was gifted to me, out of the guilt or out of the fear of book report. I was definitely going to have to give once I get back home. I downloaded the book in Estonian or English, yeah, in English on my phone, read it during my trip in Malaysia and Thailand, and yeah, I covered that book. So once I managed to arrive to Thailand, I went to this hotel, no, not hotel, definitely not a hotel, rather hostel, and luckily I had just read through Alchemist, because this new book that I literally stumbled upon, because it was left actually to a locker room, but in the locker which was designated to me, it had the same author of The Alchemists, Paulo Coelho, at the back of this new book, giving this testament or short insight about this book. The book is called The Motivation Manifesto, 9 Declarations to Claim Your Personal Power by Brendan Burchard, #1 New York Times bestseller author. So obviously someone had forgot it, as I had done with my previous book during my flights, which makes this book intriguing. Is it had actually $7 dollars. It still has $7 inside. So I don't know, somebody definitely got it as a gift. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find out whose was it. The hostess wasn't kind enough to share that with me. But definitely, which makes this book even more ironic of finding it, is the book is about motivation. Well, as a sign of the title says, the Motivation Manifesto, and I have yet still to find the motivation to finish it. I believe, started it 3 or 4 times from the get-go, from the beginning, but yeah, for some reason I haven't got to the last letter or the last $7 on the last page, so I am yet to discover it.
You can manifest it more, I think.
So that's this story. Hopefully I will find the right owner and get to return it to him or her some way or somehow. Yeah, as The Alchemist says, the book on its own, that if life gives you something, you should just take it. Otherwise, you would insult the universe or the greater powers which have planned it for you, or to end this thing in your hands. But yeah, these are my 3 books that I'm reading right now. Of course, I have 2 more, or at least 2 more back at home, but my bag wasn't big enough to take it with me to introduce them to you, unfortunately, today here. Yeah, thanks.
Maybe you will, maybe when the time is right, you will find it in yourself to read the book through.
Definitely, when I'm feeling down the most, yeah, whereas zero motivation left in me, then definitely it will help me reload. Well, maybe it has already, who knows. It's a powerful book.
Yes, it sure seems that way. Does anyone else want to share maybe some other book recommendations that are not from their countries, but something that you think everyone should read?
Okay, I know you said not from my own country, but still, I will still do it. I added a link to the e-catalog where you can find which books the libraries have, and it's a book. It's translated into English. It's The Tsar's Madman by Jan Gross, an Estonian author, and it's I don't even know how to describe this book exactly. It's in diary form, and it's written by basically the brother-in-law of this aristocrat who's been imprisoned because he dared to talk to the Tsar. And the Tsar's madman, the whole plot kind of revolves around the fact, was he insane, or was he quite aware what he was doing? And it's just such. I've read it a couple times for school. I think it's compulsory reading also in high schools, but I also read it in English, and I think it's just an interesting historical novel about Estonia, about the manor systems we had under German rule and how that life works. So it has like quite a wide scope in that sense. So anyone who hasn't, I recommend it. I think it's one of the main books that I recommend to people who want to immerse themselves into Estonian literature. I also added one other link to a website that has sort of like a kind of a database for Estonian books translated into other languages. So you can search by Estonian writers, but you can also search latest translations. In 2021, books were translated into Polish, Romanian, for instance. A children's book was translated into Romanian, and you get a good overview of what Estonian literature looks like in other languages. So if anyone's interested at all in Estonian literature, I do ask you to check out that link. A few other people that have joined, do you want to share some book recommendations or just listening? Okay, quiet on the Western Front. So, okay, the people who did share their love of books and recommendations, do you read physical books, e-books, audiobooks? Do you buy them? Do you borrow them?
Everything, because at least one of my favorite writers, unfortunately, is still not so popular in the digital form. It's an old Polish literature, Jarosław Iwaszkiewicz, and he is, I have like the full set of his works at home in paper. So I have to read it in paper every now and then, and I reread a lot of literature, to be honest. I read new things and I continue rereading the old ones, because actually as you grow old, everything changes, like perspective changes, and your attitudes do as well. And it's a very interesting thing to observe about yourself, how exactly you have changed during the years, and what do you think about this book you used to love so much and you used to quote so widely, and how does it change for you? So yeah, I still have a lot of paper books, even though I've moved a lot all over the world, but I hope we have settled down here in Estonia, and now all my blood books are here with me.
Perfect. Anyone else?
I mostly listen to audiobooks because I can listen when I'm walking, when I'm going to gym, when I'm vacuuming, when I do everything. So yeah, it's easier. And from the audiobooks, I can recommend, if nobody listened to, The Children of Húrin by Tolkien. It's read by Christopher Lee, and it's really, really, really good. And it's yeah, it's one of my favorite. I didn't say anything about that because we have to say what our Romanian authors are. But yeah, from the international ones, this is one of my favorites. And I love Christopher Lee's voice, so it's nice to hear Saruman read the children of Hurin. But yeah, mostly audiobooks. And from time to time, if I really like something, I buy the physical book. Like lately, I bought The Unfinished Tales by Tolkien.
For me, it's 30% audiobooks, 60% physical or ebooks, and e-magazines from Overdrive, the e-library, whatever I can get my hands on, basically. So I have to read for work, but it's 100% pleasure, always.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I love audiobooks, and I've discovered this Overdrive library. It's a really great way to listen to books and also to read in English. So check it out. And also I still love physical books. It's a nice thing to climb into bed with.
Yeah, I would like to second Jaanika exactly. Going to bed with a book, trying to fight this good old fight with the screens and whatnot. So definitely I discovered that my sleep quality has exponentially gone up, or rather bettered during the last few months once I started reading in the evenings. Plus, I would like to add that I'm still the kind of reader who likes to underline things I find interesting, or I'd like to remember maybe later on, or maybe find or relate to, or make footnotes on those physical good old paper books. But I think I've read at least one book which I pirated online, so I hope the library people won't judge me too harsh.
But libraries are a legal way of getting your books, so no need to turn to Life of Crime.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, if anyone wants to mention anything else about reading their favorite authors, or shall we finish for today and talk, just briefly mention the next meeting? All right. I won't leave the silence on for too long. So we thought we would tell you right away the next meeting that we have planned. Of course, information is going to go up on our website, probably also the all the same channels where you heard about this one. And if you want, you can, Sandra, can you give the email where you can write if you have any questions, or you want reading recommendations, or you want to ask about the new event, or send us your email so we can send you the event info. The next one is going to be on Wednesday again at on the 16th of February. It's Wednesday for 4 weeks from now, and I think we're probably going to keep it around the same time. The topic is going to be food, national cuisines, and anything else around that idea that we can talk about. So looking forward to all the restaurant recommendation and dish recommendations we're going to be getting next time. Right, so I think we should end the recording right now. Thank you so much for attending and listening to us and talking.